Unlocking the shocking truth. Why Romans 8 haunts today, you won't believe its impact. The chilling echoes of an ancient text ripple through time, its words igniting deep, unsettling curiosity. Romans 8 isn't just scripture. It's a ghostly whisper that haunts modern minds, pulling strings we can't quite see. What dark secret lies within those pages that stirs such unease? Every time you open that chapter, a tremor runs through you, fear, anticipation, raw intrigue. It's as if the ink hasn't dried, and its ancient authors are still watching, waiting for their message to unravel, ready to ensnare those who dare to look deeper. Imagine a quiet Sunday morning, sunlight spilling through stained glass windows, illuminating a congregation unaware of the storm brewing just beneath their folded hands. The moment people hear a reading from Romans 8, the air thickens, charged with a heavy tension. Eyes widen, breaths hold. It's not just scripture. It's a prophecy, a coded message that just might hold the key to unexplainable events happening in the world today. How could a single chapter cause such turmoil? The bizarre coincidences begin surfacing. Fires during sermons, inexplicable fallouts among friends, relationships crashing over odd disagreements about interpretation. Each time someone quotes a verse, a shudder of disbelief reverberates through the pews. Tension escalates as people start discovering connections between personal misfortune and the very text they revere. A father of 3 loses his job after a casual discussion about faith. An unexplainable accident befalls a believer who questions the meaning of grace. It's a spiraling descent into chaos, and Romans 8 stands at the center, a bizarre riddle no one can solve. Vibrant colors and vivid images filter through fractured memories. Carpenter tools mingled with prayer beads, handshakes turned into raised fists. A mounting dread fills the space with whispers of what if, that echo ominously. It's not just coincidence. It feels like a warning. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the dust settles, the congregation is left shaken, grappling with the unseen strings pulling at their lives. A glimmer of hope punctuates the despair. A lone voice stands up, daring to ask the question that could change everything. Is Romans 8 a curse or a blessing? But before the echoes fade, one chilling thought emerges. If this chapter holds such power, what could it unleash if left unchecked? The mysterious tapestry of fate twists before them, and the quest for answers becomes their lifeline and their downfall. What truths lie buried beneath the surface that could change everything they believe? The following week, whispers filled the air like a charged storm. The congregation couldn't shake the dread that gripped their hearts. It hung like a thick fog, wrapping around their minds, leading them to question everything they had once found unshakable in their faith. Sunday rolled back around, but this time, a palpable fear spread across the faces of worshippers as they filed into the church. Murmurs grew louder as friends exchanged furtive glances and hushed conversations. Did you hear about the Thompson family? A woman whispered, her voice trembling. A car crash right after last week's service. They were heading home from church. Another voice chimed in, anxiety rising. Could it be related to Romans 8? Suddenly, uncertainty exploded like fireworks in the air, igniting fresh tribulations in their minds. The pastor stood at the front, clutching his Bible, but his hands trembled. Shadows danced across his face as he read. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Eyes darted nervously around the sanctuary. People gripped their pews, their knuckles white, their hearts pounding in sync with the dreadful weight of that chapter as he spoke. Accidents seemed to echo in the background. A loud crash from the church kitchen as a pot mistakenly tipped over, sending a crash reverberating through the sacred hall. Gasps erupted. A collective jump like a tightly wound coil ready to snap. A child's wail followed, adding to the tension, striking a raw nerve, reminding adults of their own fears. The pastor stammered, struggling to regain control, his voice wavering as he grappled for answers to questions swirling around him like vultures. In a dim corner at the back of the church, Clara sat hunched over, legs shaking. The week had not been kind to her. As she rifled through her beaded bracelet, her friend Emily squeezed her wrist, concern etched into her brow. "Are you okay?" Clara's gaze darted away. "No, I keep seeing the same thing in my dreams. What if Romans 8 isn't just words?" She looked up, voice cracking. Before Emily could respond, a crowd of people surged toward the door. "There's been another fire," someone shouted breathlessly. An old church down the road had burned the whole night through, illuminating the dark sky. The disbelief was tangible. A fire, a crash, was this all part of a greater consequence of invoking Romans 8 in their lives? Panic swept through the congregation like a tidal wave. People began to shout over one another. "This is just a coincidence," one insisted, while another sobbed. "Something's happening. We need to find out what Romans 8 means." Yet within the chaos, a mysterious silence fell over the crowd. A hush only broken by the soft crackling of a candle's flame. Clara stood, heart racing, eyes wild. "If we don't uncover the truth behind this chapter, we might be next." Her words seemed to hang in the air, and as if scripted, everyone turned to face the altar. The weight of the moment pressed down on them like an unseen force. What had been buried beneath centuries of scholarly analysis and theological debates was now provoking fear, daring them to confront a truth that felt almost alive and absolutely terrifying. And as the candle flickered ominously, the question reverberated through those gathered. Who among them was brave enough to seek answers, and what unspeakable truths would be uncovered? Clara's heart pounded as the heavy atmosphere engulfed her. The fearful faces of her fellow congregants mirrored the turmoil within her. She stepped forward, propelled by a sudden surge of courage. What if it's not just the words in Romans 8 that we're afraid of? What if it's the darkness itself that is stirring? Her words hung in the air like a challenge, igniting murmurs of uncertainty that spun through the crowd. Many exchanged anxious glances, as if questioning their own thoughts or perhaps their very existence. The quiet terror seemed to spill into the open like ink in water. Voices erupted again. "We need to talk to the pastor," a man shouted, but his face was pale, eyes wide with panic. "What does he really know?" Others nodded in agreement. Some backed away as if fearing an unseen presence. The air grew thick, charged with both fear and a desperation for clarity. As the pastor turned toward Clara, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean, darkness?" he asked, though his voice trembled. It was as if he had been awakened from a deep slumber into a nightmare he wished to escape. Clara could see the flickers of doubt in his eyes. "You read it yourself," she pressed. "The chapter speaks of suffering. What if this is our moment of reckoning? What if we are paying for our blind faith?" Gasps echoed through the sanctuary. The words danced through the air, igniting a wildfire of remorse and fear. "Suffering," a woman cried. "Is that it? Are we being punished?" Panic sharp as knives broke through the stillness, eventuating in tears streaming down trembling faces. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated outside, slashed the chaos. Then silence swept through the room once more. Clara's breath hitched. What was that? She glanced at Emily, who had gone pale with fear, the beads of her bracelet slipping from her fingers. "We should check," breathed Emily. But Clara froze, intense dread engulfing her. "No, wait," she almost shouted. "What if it's part of this? What if this darkness is drawing near?" The congregation held their breaths, faces pale as a sudden chill ran through the air, extinguishing every flickering candlelight, dimming the sanctuary. An eerie stillness enveloped them, as if the church itself was holding its breath for what was to come. With a creak, the heavy wooden doors of the church swung open, revealing shadows that moved just outside the frame of their sanctuary. Clara squinted into the dark. The world outside pulsed with an unholy energy, a faint glow illuminating sinister shapes, A voice tore through the silence, frantic yet authoritative. "Clara, Emily, you need to come outside now." It was Derek, the youth leader, his face lit by the amber glow of firelight, his expression etched with urgency as he stepped cautiously into the threshold. "What's happening?" Clara managed to ask, her heart racing as she drew closer to the door. The eyes of the congregation turned toward her, hope and despair twinkling in their depths. "Something's unfolding," he said, glancing back toward the dark. "I think we're being targeted. Because of Romans 8. It's all connected. You have to see this." In that moment, Clara peeled back the veil of fear. A sense of doom loomed over them. What lay beyond that door? What was the connection between their suffering and the ominous forces gripping their lives? She felt the pull of the unknown, both terrifying and magnetic. "Let us go," she shouted, and with that, they surged forward towards the door, every footstep echoing like a heartbeat against the heavy silence, a march into darkness. As they stepped into the unknown, Clara's breath caught again. A fire raged in the distance, illuminating an unfolding chaos that threatened to consume everything they had once held sacred. What awaited them beyond that threshold? And could they uncover the truth before it was too late? The air outside the church was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning wood. An orange glow flickered across the ground, casting long shadows that danced like specters in the night. Clara's pulse quickened as she and the others stepped into the chaos. What on earth happened? Emily gasped, looking around. The congregation started to cluster together, faces illuminated by the surreal light. Whispers of disbelief threaded through the group as they caught sight of the small building next to the church engulfed in flames. The crackling sound of wood splintering echoed in the air like ominous laughter. Derek moved toward the front, his silhouette outlined by the flames. "We need to get everyone back," he shouted, his voice barely carrying above the crackling fire. "It's not safe here." Clara's stomach twisted. But how did this happen? Her thoughts raced. The feeling of dread settled in her chest. This fire, it felt intentional. The darkness was not just stirring. It was wreaking havoc. A woman clutched Clara's arm, her eyes wide and glimmering with fear. "This is all tied to what you said inside. It can't be a coincidence." "No," Clara insisted, shaking her head fiercely. "We can't just think that way. We need to understand what we're really dealing with." But doubt gnawed at her. Deep down, she questioned whether this was the manifestation of their collective fears, the castigation for their doubt. Flashing lights cut through the thick smoke as emergency vehicles arrived, setting off shrill sirens. A fire truck pulled up, and firefighters sprang into action, their silhouettes appearing like knights ready to battle a dragon. Clara felt a flicker of hope. They weren't alone. Help was here, someone to combat the impending disaster. Yet, as the firefighters hustled past, Clara noticed something strange. The flames rose higher, almost as if they were fueled by something unseen. The blaze flickered in the direction of the church and swept toward the congregation, as if the very darkness that loomed was feeding the fire, and evil hunger threatening to engulf them all. Panic shattered the air, people backing away from the relentless heat. Derek turned sharply to Clara. "You need to speak. Do something." Her throat tightened. "What can I say?" she questioned, fear suffocating her. "Tell them to fight back. Don't let the darkness win," he urged, desperation infecting his voice. With the fire roaring behind her, Clara could feel their eyes burning into her soul, souls seeking solace amidst the chaos. Taking a deep breath, she spoke, louder this time. "We cannot let fear consume us. The words we read in Romans 8 aren't just about the suffering. They are about hope." But even as hope slipped from her lips, the fire flaring behind her felt like a mocking ghost, a counterpoint to every word she uttered. "I believe that in our suffering we are being transformed. We can't let this moment define us." A tremor ran through the crowd as they considered her words. Clara locked eyes with Derek, begging him for belief. In the midst of their disarray, a woman screamed, "Over there!" Panic radiated from her as she pointed toward the shadows, where the darkness seemed to writhe and pulse. Shapes emerged, figures cloaked in black, slipping through the chaos like whispers carried by the wind. Clara felt her heart drop. The darkness was not merely a concept. It was real, and it was coming for them. What do they want from us? Clara whispered, fear tightening around her as the figures advanced. Derek's face hardened. It doesn't matter. We won. Let them take us. But Clara's mind raced, wondering if this was the reckoning they had all feared. As the figures drew nearer, everything stood still. A heavy silence fell, slicing through the cacophony. And then, a sinister voice broke through the quiet, low and chilling, like the rustle of dead leaves. You wish to understand the truth? It's time to embrace the darkness. Clara backed away, her breath stolen by the weight of the revelation. Was this the truth they had sought? Would they have to confront the very evil that toyed with their faith? As uncertainty and terror swirled around them, a haunting question formed in her mind, echoing louder than the flames. What were they willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth, and would their faith survive the darkness that awaited them? Clara's breath came in shallow gasps as the shadowy figures drew nearer. Each step they took seemed to drain the warmth from the air, leaving only an icy dread in its wake. The flickering flames cast their faces in an otherworldly light, revealing eyes that held a dark hunger. She could almost feel the whispers of despair swirling around her, asking questions she wasn't ready to answer. Clara, Derek shouted, snapping her back to reality. What do we do? His voice cut through the fear like a knife. The fire raged behind her, but in that moment, Clara felt frozen in place, caught in the grip of the shadows, teetering on the brink of an abyss. Gathering herself, she forced the words out. We face them. We confront whatever this is. She didn't believe it fully. Courage felt like a mask she was wearing. But the urgency spurred her on. We have to stand together. Whatever they want, we can't let them divide us. Behind her, the crowd stirred. Uncertainty rippled through the faces that had once looked so trusting and hopeful. The shadows shifted, closing the gap, and the voice echoed again. Confrontation is the path to truth, dear ones. But truth demands a price. A shiver ran down Clara's spine. The words hung in the heavy air, crowding in around her, suffocating her sense of purpose. She glanced around the group, seeking any flicker of resolve between the lines of fear. Emily was standing with her hands clasped tightly, eyes glistening with unshed tears, while others were frozen, lost in the depths of their fright. Clara, Emily cried out, they're not just shadows. They're here for a reason. Yes, Walter added, his voice shaking. We should leave. This is madness. No, Clara barked, her voice louder than she'd intended. It cut through the panic like a whip. We're not abandoning each other. To leave would be to let them win. The shadows drew closer, flickering in disjointed forms, as if they were debating their next move. The flames lifted, like a dragon awakening, mirroring the tension in Clara's chest. Whatever this was, it felt like a tense standoff, daring them to bow to their fears. Lines creased Derek's forehead as he stepped closer to Clara, his expression fiercely protective. Then what's the plan? We can't just shout at them. Maybe we don't shout. Maybe we remind them of our strength. Clara felt a spark ignite deep within her, the memory of the words she'd shared before, a reminder of resilience in the face of despair. What if we join hands? She suggested, her voice now steady. Together, we represent something they can't extinguish. Our faith, our community, it's stronger than this darkness. A few hesitant souls reached for each other, fingers brushing against palms. But as more people joined in, the shadows screamed a sound that pierced the air like nails on a chalkboard, echoing deeply within their chests. It was a warning, a promise that chaos loomed closer. But Clara wasn't going to give in now. Shout it. Remind them who we are, she urged, squeezing Derek's hand, emboldened by the connection they shared. We are not afraid. We are hope. As voices rose in a desperate, united front, shaking off the weight of darkness, the figures halted. The shadows shimmered and writhed, unable to advance further, as the warmth of collective belief pressed against them. Clara could feel the tide turning, the fear wedging itself against the belief that swirled amongst them. Then, a rippling laughter surged from the figures, a deep, mocking sound. Hope? What a beautiful illusion. The voice twisted through the air, chilling their collective heart. You think your flimsy hope can withstand the truth? The truth? Before Clara could brace herself, a wave of energy rolled through the crowd, and her vision blurred. She struggled to keep her footing, heart pounding as the frightening chill rushed in. The shadows surged, shifting like a restless tide, and the laughter crescendoed. Clara's eyes searched for Derek, her lifeline. But now everything felt off-kilter, their unity fraying at the edges as fear clawed at their resolve. "Clara!" he shouted again, panic rising in his voice. And then, in a terrifying rush, she felt herself pulled forward, separated from the group, a shadow reaching for her. In one terrifying instant, Clara realized what the shadows wanted. Not only to extinguish their hope, but to isolate her, the very one who had dared to speak truth to fear. As darkness closed in, one haunting thought surfaced in her mind: what if their hope was never enough? What was she willing to sacrifice to save herself? And if she failed, how deeply would that plunge the others into the abyss? Clara felt a jolt, a pull that yanked her from the safety of the crowd. Panic surged through her veins. She twisted, reaching back for Derek, but a wall of shadow swirled around her, thick and suffocating. The laughter swelled, sharp and cruel, wrapping around her like a vice. "Clara, no!" Derek's voice echoed, but it was fading, swallowed by the darkness. She gasped, trying to draw in air as the shadows coiled tighter, hungry whispers slithering around her mind. "Don't resist. Join us. Give in to the truth." The figures writhed with distorted faces, their features morphing into grotesque parodies of the people she loved. Emily blinked with hollow eyes, Walter's face twisted in anguish. Clara hurled her emotions at them, remembering their laughter under the sun, the warmth of shared moments, the way hope had once felt like solid ground. "You're not real," she shouted. But as those words fell from her lips, a wave of doubt crashed over her. What if this was the true reality? What if the laughter she fought for was just a fragile dream? "Listen to the truth," one of the shadows hissed, its voice a caress mixed with venom. "Your hope is a whisper against the roar of despair." Clara shivered, blinking away the tears that threatened to fall. She could see it now. The flickering faces surrounding her didn't just carry the weight of her fears. They were reflections of her own doubts. Had she ever truly been strong enough to lead them? A deeper shadow loomed, with a vague shape resembling her. "Searching for strength? Look closer. You were always meant to fail." "No." Clara refused to accept it, shoving against the shadow's weight. She could feel a rising heat within, an ember of determination. "I won't let you twist my mind." Behind her, she could hear Derek's voice rising against the noise, igniting a flicker of hope deep in her chest. "Clara, remember who you are. Fight." His words cut through the murky depths, reminding her that strength wasn't just a matter of belief. It was action. The realization hit her: the only way to combat the shadows was to face her own fears. She needed to unravel the lies they spun around her heart. Together, Clara whispered, holding tightly to the memory of her friends. "Together we are more than fear." With a sudden burst of will, she ripped herself from the grip of the shadow, racing back toward the warmth of the group. The shadows screeched, a chorus of hatred, but she could feel the tide turning as her confidence reignited hope among the others. "Join me," she shouted, desperately looking around. One by one, her friends took a step forward, hands reaching out. But they hesitated, fear creeping back into their expressions. Walter looked pained, caught between wanting to step forward and being overwhelmed by dread. "Can we really stand against them?" "Yes." Clara's voice soared. "We can't let them decide our fate. We face the truth together. They're feeding off our fear. Let us take that away." With a collective breath, they raised their hands, uniting in a circle. The warmth enveloped them, an electric energy pulsing, pushing back against the shadows that writhed in fury. "Remember who you are," Clara echoed, feeling power swell as their voices joined together. "We are a community. We are stronger. We are hope." But the shadows began to writhe more violently, howling with rage, as the darkness surged toward them, desperate to snuff out what remained of defiance. A frightened whisper slipped from Emily's lips. What if hope isn't enough? What if they overpower us? Clara's chest tightened at the thought, that lurking question chilling her spirit. Just as the shadows thundered forward, she caught a glimpse of something in the distance, a flicker of light, bright and unwavering, pulling at her. Could this light hold the truth they needed? Fighting back the gripping fear, Clara shouted, "We can't hesitate. Stay strong. We fight." But with the darkness spiraling closer, it was becoming clear this battle was only the beginning. What terrifying truth awaited them beyond the shadows, just beyond the light? Clara could sense it creeping closer, ready to unleash its full fury. Clara could feel the shadows thrumming with rage, their twisted forms clawing at her edges. The air thickened, each breath a struggle, but she refused to falter. She focused on that flicker of light, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat, urging her onward. Together, she yelled, desperate to bind the group's resolve. The crowd surged around her, their faces a medley of fear and determination. Walter's brow furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. What if the light isn't a path to safety? He questioned, his voice barely a whisper above the cacophony of anguished wails. Clara's heart sank with doubt. What if this escape was just another illusion? But she clenched her fists, pushing thoughts of despair aside. We'll never know until we try, she shot back, pulling the others closer to her. Suddenly, the shadows lunged, a billowing mass, and she felt their icy fingers graze her skin. Her stomach twisted in panic as she encountered a surge of hopelessness sweeping through the group. The fear danced around them, hungry and relentless, trying to snuff out their resolve. Fight it, Derek's voice rang out. He stepped forward, bold against the darkness, though his eyes mirrored the terror they all felt. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone who can't fight. With Derek leading, their voices harmonized, trembling and fierce. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, surrendering to that pulse of determination. We are not afraid, she shouted, feeling the heat of their spirits intertwining, lifting them above the creeping despair as her voice shattered the silence. A crack of light exploded in front of them, slicing through the shadows like a sword, revealing twisted pathways behind the malignant mass. The very fabric of despair unraveled at the seams. Faces of those lost in the darkness began to flicker, pieces of a puzzle coming together in agonizing clarity. But just as hope ignited, a guttural growl erupted, ripping through their formation. The shadows recoiled for a moment, morphing again, revealing phantoms of Clara's memories, moments of judgment, failure, scars of her past burrowed deep in her spirit. No, I won't allow you to control me, she screamed, her voice now a weapon. The others rallied with her, their own fears morphing into strength, fueling the fight as each shout propelled them closer to that beckoning light. Then, a rift opened, a channel of bright light blazing like a sun breaking through a storm. Clara's heart raced. This is it. This is our chance, she urged, confusion battling with exhilaration. The light pulsated, pulling them toward it, as if the universe itself was saying, this is where you belong. But just as they began to step forward, shadows surged once more, shrieking with furious indignation. They felt like tendrils of black smoke, wrapping around their limbs, attempting to drag them back into darkness. Emily stumbled, fear etched on her face. What if we're walking into a trap? Clara hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. In that wavering moment, she felt another shadow whisper in her ear. This is where you fail. It slithered around her, dark and slick, taunting her. No, she shouted back at it, shaking her head fiercely. I control my fate. As they pushed forward together, Clara felt the weight of conviction anchoring her. Each step was a defiance against everything that had tried to break her. But as they neared the light, a familiar voice echoed, cold and chilling in the brightness ahead. Welcome to the end, and icy fingers grazed her spine, prompting Clara to stop dead in her tracks, heart hammering. Shadows rolled ominously at the threshold, unraveling secrets she hoped to outrun. But what awaited them on the other side? Was it freedom, or a terrifying truth they had long buried? In that crucial instant, as her mind raced with possibilities, the shadows merged, transforming into one monstrous shape, ready to reveal its final act of malice. What grotesque truth lay hidden behind that luminous curtain? Whispers promising pain wrapped in deception. Clara's resolve hung by a thread, trembling on the edge of the unknown. The air crackled with tension as the shadowy figure loomed larger, shifting and writhing like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury. Clara could barely breathe, the weight of its presence heavier than any physical burden she had ever known. The familiar voice continued to echo, intertwining with darkness and doubt. What if you've been running toward your own undoing? The group staggered in shock, fear seeping into their movements. Walter's eyes widened, his breath hitching in his throat. We can't let it stop us now, he rasped, but the quaver in his voice reflected the struggle within. Clara's heart pounded like a drum. Memories flooded her all at once, echoes of her past regrets mixing with the specters of her friends' fears. We have to face it, she shouted, tapping into the strength forged from their shared experiences. Derek took a step forward, bravely positioning himself between the group and the monstrous shape, which twisted and turned, unmaking itself only to reassemble into terrifying forms. Whatever it is, we are stronger together, he proclaimed. His words snapped some of the tension, igniting a spark of hope. Still, the shadow loomed large. Its voice became an anguished roar, pulling from the depths of their darkest memories. You all think you can escape? You don't even know who you really are. Clara recoiled, her mind a storm of confusion and pain. Were they truly running from something more than shadows? Echoes of their failures shattered the moment's tenuous comfort. Yet, she realized something vital. It was not just the shadows they needed to battle, but the darkness within themselves. No, Clara thundered, her voice like lightning striking through the gloom. We won't let you define us. Suddenly, the light before them pulsed again, responding to Clara's outburst. It shimmered with a golden hue, and the air felt thick with possibility. We have the power to rewrite our stories, she urged, rallying her friends. This is our moment to reclaim what is ours. The shadows lunged, howling with rage, but Clara and the others stood firm. With each heartbeat, the choking darkness began to peel away under the light's brilliance, revealing flickers of memories that were not tainted by despair, but painted in hues of hope and resilience. Clara's breath quickened as she focused on a warm memory, a shared laugh by the lake, a long-forgotten summer day. Remember this, she cried, beckoning the group. This is who we are. They all closed their eyes, reaching out for shared moments of joy and connection, fueling each other's resolve. Clara felt the shift as hope surged through them, strengthening the bond they shared. The shadows flinched, almost retreating before the brightness of their collective memories, even as they glared and snarled, desperate to hold onto Clara's vulnerabilities. But just when it seemed the darkness was about to dissolve entirely, it wrapped its tendrils tightly around Derek, dragging him back. Clara, he yelled, panic flooding his voice. The crushing weight of despair fell on the group, a frigid reminder that freedom was not guaranteed. No, Clara shouted, lunging towards him, breaking through the barrier of fear. We will not leave anyone behind. Her outcry resonated with the words of unity ringing in their hearts. They surged toward Derek, forming a chain of resolve. Together, they grasped hands and pulled with all their might, desperate to fight against the pull of darkness. Then they all turned toward the portal of light, brimming with energy and determination, ready to leap into its embrace. But what awaited them beyond that threshold? Would they find salvation, or would they awaken to a fresh nightmare layered in shadows, spun from their own truths? They hesitated at the portal's edge, hearts racing as the monstrous shape lunged one last time, a claw reaching out with agonizing intent, determined to keep them ensnared in its depths. With the shadows closing in, secrets flourishing in the dark, Clara could only wonder how deep the darkness ran. Would they discover the strength of who they could truly be? Or would the past consume them? Only one way to find out. Derek's desperate screams pierced through Clara's thoughts like shards of glass, shattering the budding hope. The darkness lunged with unholy speed, its clawed hand groping for him, curling around his ankle. He tried to claw his way toward the light, but the tendril of shadow tightened, dragging him backward into the inky abyss. "Hold on, Derek," Clara yelled, her voice teetering on the brink of fear. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to stay with the light, to leap forward, but Derek was part of her. She couldn't abandon him now. Walter and Emma gripped Clara's hands, their faces pale as they exchanged anxious glances. "If we don't do something fast," Walter trailed off, his words swallowed by the chaotic roar of the darkness. The creature's laughter echoed, guttural and mocking, filling the air with a sense of doom. "You think you can save him? That light won't last forever. It's merely a flicker in the abyss. Your little friendship can't outshine the truth of your failures." Clara's heart raced. "No, that's not true. We've lived through pain. We can use it." The memories danced in her mind, each laugh, each shared struggle igniting a flame of defiance. She couldn't allow the shadows to unravel their connection. "Think of every moment we fought together," she urged, her voice cracking with fervor. "Every laugh, every tear, it's what binds us." The light pulsed again, responding to her conviction, but the shadows responded just as ruthlessly, tightening their grip around Derek, his face twisting in agony. Clara felt her resolve harden like reinforced steel. "We need to pull him back." Derek's eyes met Clara's briefly, filled with a panic that twisted like a knife in her chest. "Please," he gasped, his breath uneven. The shadows hissed, relentless in their pursuit to envelop him. "On three," Clara commanded, gathering strength. "1, 2, 3. They all pulled with everything they had. A surge of energy transmitted through their clasped hands. The bonds of their shared memories seemed to weave around the darkness like vines, pushing back against the suffocating shadows. "Look at him. Remember how we reminded him who he was?" Emma shouted, stepping deeper into the fight. "He is not just Derek, he is the sum of us all." As if responding to Emma's words, the golden light flared brighter, displacing the shadows inch by inch. Glistening wisps of resilience flitted around them. The dark creature screeched, its form twisting in agony as it struggled against the warmth of their love and unity. Derek pulled at the chains binding him, his face a mask of determination. "You can do this. Don't give up." The pull intensified, their hearts synchronized a pounding, fierce rhythm of defiance against the shadowy depths. Clara could feel the warmth wrap around her, connecting them all like roots of a great tree reaching for the sun. "Almost there," Clara urged with one final heave. They felt Derek's weight lurch forward. And, at that moment, the surrounding light surged, ripping through the last vestiges of darkness. A blinding flash exploded in the chamber, and the shadows recoiled, shrieking in pain and fury as they released their hold on Derek. But as they stumbled over the threshold of light, Clara caught a glimpse of something terrifying. A shadowy figure darker than anything she had ever faced looming behind them, its monstrous eyes fixed on her with a dreadful hunger. It was the echo of something deeper, something they hadn't yet confronted. "Clara!" Derek shouted, pulling her away as they barreled through the portal. But would the truth follow them? Would they survive this encounter, knowing the shadows remained? Or was this another mirage of safety to ensnare them once more? The uncertainty weighed heavily upon Clara as they crossed into the light, the shadow's piercing stare haunting her thoughts, a reminder of the true battle that lay ahead. Clara emerged from that blinding light, breathless and trembling. The weight of darkness lifted slowly, like a heavy fog dissipating, but the recent memories clung to her, shadows still lingering at the edges of her mind. Around her, the familiar faces of her friends filled her with warmth. But even as relief washed over them, the lingering dread pulsed like a shared heartbeat. "Is it over?" Emily whispered, her voice fragile. Clara looked around, taking in their surroundings. It felt quieter. The chaos of the fire and shadows exchanged for an eerie calmness. They stood in the churchyard, everything intact, untouched by the previous horrors. Yet, in her heart, she knew this wasn't just a physical reprieve. The struggles they faced deep within hadn't vanished. "We have to be vigilant," Clara finally said, her voice firm yet carrying an undercurrent of vulnerability. "The darkness is still there. It will always be there, waiting for our moment of weakness." But instead of despair, Clara felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "But we have each other," she continued, glancing at the group who had stood by her side in the depths of the abyss. "We faced the shadows and fought. That counts for something." Derek nodded, his energy returning. "We remembered the power of our light, didn't we? Our memories, our ties are what make us strong." A ripple of understanding spread across the group. They had confronted not just the shadows surrounding them, but the darkness that resided within. Now, bound by shared struggles, they felt something unbreakable form among them. "Let us talk," Clara suggested, her voice steady, "about what we experienced. We need to unpack the truth. Not just Romans 8, but what it means for us as a community." They formed a circle closer than before. As they spoke, the air swelled with a blend of vulnerability and strength, a mosaic of their collective voices weaving stories of fear, love, loss, and redemption. Walter S. tale of doubt illuminated Clara's past failures, reminding them of the shadows they all grappled with. Through tears and laughter, they shared their truths, and with every conversation, the weight of the horror lifted just a little more, creating a brighter space, their sanctuary filled not only with faith, but resilience born from confronting their darkest fears. The sun began to dip into the horizon, casting a golden light that spilled across the churchyard, reflecting on the faces of Clara and her friends. This moment felt like more than survival. It was rebirth. They had acknowledged the pain of their past. Now they could choose their future. "What if Romans 8 isn't a curse?" Clara offered hesitantly, but the spark of conviction filled her words. "What if it's encouraging us to see that even in suffering, there is hope? We can transform our anguish into strength." The group nodded, it resonated deeply. They wouldn't retreat into doubt again as twilight enveloped them. The shadows fading into a soft darkness, Clara glanced skyward. "This is our moment. Let us keep the truth alive, even the hard truths. Let us find our way forward together." They clasped hands again, uniting under the soft glow of the stars. They were a community forged in light against the lingering darkness. Together, they whispered, a promise echoing through their hearts. As they dispersed, laughter mingled with relief as their spirits lightened, fear giving way to hope. And while the shadows had taught them that pain and doubt were unavoidable, within that same breath was the promise of strength, belonging, and the courage to face whatever lay ahead. The words of Romans 8 would haunt them, yes, but not in fear. Instead, they would carry those echoes as reminders of their journey, a testament to the light they chose in the face of darkness. This was not the end, it was a new beginning. Now, as you reach the end of this emotional roller coaster, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive stories that will follow. Smash that like button now to feed this algorithm and help us grow. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and questions about this wild conclusion. We want to hear from you. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You can make a difference. Let us keep this momentum rolling. Your support is everything. Don't wait even one more second.